welcome to this interview of the founders of Focused Life Force Energy. My name is Madeline Gerwick, and I'm the founder of Polaris Business Guides, a company that helps you and your company work in harmony with the universe. So today we are going to interview Jeff Stegman and Clayton Stedman. And they are the two founders of Focused Life Force Energy, which is an incredible technology designed to help you feel better, be more focused, more creative, sleep better. It has amazing benefits. And I was very lucky back in September of 2018 to discover this new technology. And I have been so delighted with it. I decided I wanted to tell other people about it. So this is my way of helping to answer a lot of the questions that people have sent me about Focused Life Force Energy. And I almost said fluffy. I want to tell you why I almost said fluffy. The short version of Focused Life Force Energy is FLFE. And if you just imagine a U in there somewhere, it sounds like fluffy. And so we will use that sometimes throughout the interview. So first, before I introduce you to the two founders, I also want to mention that there are free trials available, and there will be a link very close by to this video so that you can click on that at any time, and you can free, meaning you don't even have to put in a credit card or anything, sign up to get Fluffy and try it out for yourself for 15 days. Absolutely free. So welcome, Jeff and Clayton. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm hoping that we'll tell everybody enough so that they can understand what this new technology is. And before I tell them that, I'd just like to find out, how did you guys decide to go off and create such a thing? How did you get on this path? It's kind of an unusual product. It's an energy product, and it beams to your home or your phone. And so give us a clue how you got involved in this.
Yeah, I could start off and then hand it off to you, Clayton.
Sure.
It started as a service project. We started learning that we discovered the technology through a group of inventors that Clayton found in BC, Canada. And we really learned about it and how to use it by raising consciousness around the planet, doing service projects. And this was during all of 2012.
Oh, wow.
So we used Google Earth, and we created this not entanglement, but this association that occurs with the technology. And we'll get into how it works and how that is even possible to happen. But we found that we could go to Google Earth, we could find some coordinates, that unique identifier of that location on the Earth. We could then help to raise the consciousness in that area. And that's really how we got started.
Wow. So
without any idea of a business, you know.
Yeah, right. So Clayton, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, Jeff and I met through a mutual friend, and we did some business together, and we're both kind of gearheads, closet gearheads. So you might find us underneath the hood of something or tearing something apart, someday, and we'd be quite happy doing that. So we came across this technology. Well, I came across the technology, introduced it to Jeff, and he decided he wanted to meet the inventor and see it, because that's just kind of who he is. And so we flew up and went to this relatively remote location and met the inventor, and there was a version of the technology created there. We've since added multiple other layers of different technologies. And as Jeff said, there's a principle called the tipping point, or we call it the critical factor. And that's where you can put the least amount of energy into a system and get the biggest return and gain. So in the world of consciousness, as we were working with it, when we did the service work pre-2012 for about a year, we would calibrate the lowest level of consciousness location on a continent and put the service on there in a way that adhered to the law of non-interference. So there's a certain level of consciousness that you can give or contribute with interfering in people's lives. At some point, you have to have permission. So we sort of had figured out what that number was, and we raised these levels up, these areas up, and then we'd find the whole continent would go up a little bit, and then we do the next one and the next one, the next critical factor, and that's what we did for about a year. So we learned a lot about testing and using latitude, longitude coordinates, and we just learned a lot about the technology and being in service that way. Wow,
that's fascinating. So, what was your intention behind creating FLFE as a business? Or focus force, a life force energy?
Yeah. Well, after we spent this year doing the service work and, getting better at working with the technology, and, our intention was to do good, was to support consciousness, or support the evolution of consciousness on the planet. And we got to, December 21st, and we celebrated, wow, this was great. We did this work, we contributed, and, that was that, it seemed. And then the idea came in, and the way ideas do, and, we can talk later about the source of ideas at the time,
right.
to offer it as a business to people so that they could do their own, you could say, service work on the world by putting their property on. And part of what we built into the business from the beginning was, every subscription, they get a companion, pay it forward is what we call it, subscription that goes on for as long as we have the service. So it was a way for people to be able to do the same thing we did. They could pick a place in the world,
right,
put it on the service,
right,
and that whether they continued as a subscriber or not, that would continue. So it was really a way to expand the service work we were doing by economizing it as a business, providing a value to people and a way for them to do service.
Right. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's one thing, Madeline, to do good and do service work for a year and maybe spend, at the end of it was getting to be an hour or two every morning. And at some point, we all only have so many resources. And if there is a generous angel, benefactor, investor, or donator out there that wants to support the work, if the number was big enough, we might just give it all away. But given the resources that we have, in order to really scale this and bring it to the world in a large way, it needed the resources that were bigger than what we personally had.
Right.
And so we sat down and prayed about it and thought about it. It's like, well, if we're going to do this as a business or do this in a bigger way, kind of all happened at the same time. Like, how do we do that? And the answer that kept coming back was you have to turn it into a business so that it can pay for itself.
Right.
And then you can scale it, and you can do hundreds of thousands or millions of homes instead of maybe, we could do a couple every day, but now we have it all automated, so we could do 100,000 homes today.
Wow. Yeah. And that really makes a big difference in the world in terms of being able to increase consciousness to a much faster level. So that's really great that you guys decided to do that. And I know I was tremendously impressed myself when I first tried it. And some people know that I have a disabled daughter who got brain damage when she was young. And so sometimes she has challenges in terms of, well, I think like most people, keeping herself out of a negative spiral. And as soon as we got FLFE, I noticed right away she got a lot more positive. She was happier. She was cooperative. She did her chores happily. It was amazing experience for me to watch that. and I personally do a lot of energy work, so I could feel the difference right away. But I know a lot of people don't do that type of thing, and so I don't know how much they discern that difference. But for me, just watching my daughter was miraculous. So I was quite impressed right away at how effective it was. But why don't you tell us, how does FLFE work? It seems like a very mysterious project or product, you know. So tell us, how does FLFE work?
Well, it's interesting. So when we discovered the technology, it looked like a Nikola Tesla experimental setup. Like if you look in some of the books and you see some of his stacks of coils and plates and spheres. And originally there was high-speed alternating current running through that.
Oh, wow.
And it was, the design was, it was pulling in ambient energy. Originally they were trying to generate electricity. So it's pulling in ambient energy, in this case, subtle energies, you know, chi, prana, or they're named life force energy, is what we call it. And then it's concentrating that in an output stack. So you have these input stacks and an output stack. And so in that output stack, at the base of it is a highly concentrated energetic area. And what we're doing is, originally, it's now evolved where there's no alternating current, and we're now connected to a database. That's how we were able to automate. But this space is, we found that if you put an identifier in that space, that there's a quantum resonance now with that, whatever that is, whatever's being identified. So it could be coordinates, as we discovered. It could be a legal address. It could be a unique identifier like a phone number in a particular country. And so what we're doing is this space, this highly energetic space, and this quantum resonance that's occurring with another place, it's really the same, you could say, technology as human consciousness and prayer.
Right.
So if you're holding someone in mind to pray for them and to wish them well and say they're recovering, when you hold them in your mind, you're identifying them. Just like this unique identifier of the address.
Right.
And what we believe is a field is created when you hold that person in your mind at that person instantly.
Yes.
And there's that connection now that's established. And you could say that's how twin studies and, you know, mothers and their children and you think of someone and then the phone rings and it's them.
Right.
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 So they've thought of you. They're like dialing your number, and that connection is now open with them. So it's exactly the same thing, what we're doing. And so as you think of that person you're praying for, you may be holding love. So now that love is in their field.
Right.
And that's that connect that you're specifying that field around them. And we're doing the same. We're specifying the field that's created remotely to have a certain level of consciousness. And we use the Dr. David Hawkins map of consciousness. And our home service is at 560 on the Hawkins map.
Right. And so tell our viewers about the Hawkins map, because 560 doesn't probably inform them of too much.
Yeah, I'll pass that on to Clayton.
Okay.
Sure. I have a map of consciousness right there. I could go grab it. But so Dr. David Hawkins, he's made many contributions, but the one he's known for is taking kinesiology and seeing it as a non-local phenomena instead of a local phenomena.
Right.
So kinesiology was used a lot in nutrition and supplementation, where you take, like I got a bag of supplements here. I could take one of the supplements out of this bag and I could test how good it was for my body at this time. I could take these out and test them. And that's a local phenomena. It's how that supplement or that food works for this body at this time. What he discovered, was that it was a non-local phenomena. So in that situation, Madeline, if I was a good kinesiologist, I should be able to test if that supplement is good for you from where I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of non-local.
Right.
So once he discovered that, after a number of years, he developed a scale of measuring consciousness. So instead of just measuring if a supplement is good or healthy or not healthy, you could say, well, on a scale of 1 to 100, where 100 is the optimal food for the body, the level of appropriateness of this supplement is, you start at 10 and go, higher, and maybe it's 99. That'd be a great supplement. So he created a map of consciousness that goes from 1 to infinity. The human realm is 1 to 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And 200 is integrity. 500 is love. 600 is peace. And the beginning of enlightenment. 700 is enlightenment, and it kind of ripens to 1,000. So at the 560 level, it's unconditional love.
Ah.
So part of the way that we evaluate the level of appropriateness of that consciousness influence is we use kinesiology to measure the most appropriate level of consciousness to have the property at a minimum. So your property, for example, Madeline, the last time we checked, it was about 585.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have properties that are 600, 610. There's no limit on it. It's just that it gives you a really solid foundation, a place to sort of relax into. And it clears the negative history off the land. And there's other things that we do that we put into that output stack that Jeff mentioned. It's like we used to take 3x5 cards and put them into a little area in the bottom and put little prayers in there. And because we were just discovering before Jeff and I got involved, I was experimenting with the inventor. We were just discovering how this works. We would put a request to the divinity in there. We'd say, please do so-and-so, and then we leave it in there for a while and take it out. We'd look at the conditions and see what happened. And then when Jeff and I really got into it, we made a big output stack and we put 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper in there, right? Word documents, we would type them out, and then eventually we had stacks and stacks and stacks of paper. And and then we figured out we could just put a piece of paper in there that told it to go connect to a database.
Oh, that's cool.
It wasn't how it evolved, it was just one of those things where that was the exciting part over that year when we were just doing it for service work, and we still do tons of service work. We just learned more and more about how to use the technology because we kept discovering things. I mean, the original inventor, he was on the phone one day with a friend, and he used to take these crystals and put them on the output stack and charge them up and put them around the house because he said it made the house feel good. So he had a plate of marble in there one day, and he pulled the marble out. And he was going to put it around the house because he think he'd use up all the crystals. He was trying to use it. He had old countertop material, so he's a really eccentric person. So he was holding this marble in his hand, and the phone rang, and he was talking to his friend. And when he got off the phone, he realized the arthritic pain in his right hand went away where he was holding the marble.
Wow.
And it was like,
impressive.
So then he held it in his left hand, and after about a few minutes, the arthritic pain went away. And then he started sending charged pieces of marble and crystal to his friends who had arthritis. He's fairly old. And their arthritic pain started going away. Now, we don't make any health claims, but this is just how it happened, right?
Right.
And but then in a couple of weeks, they'd say, geez, I'm holding the marble and the pain isn't going on anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because the charge is going out, right?
Right.
So then we figured out that if you took a picture of the marble and put it in the machine, it would charge up the marble.
That's amazing.
So that was
That's
like just
really
the fluke
cool.
of it, you know?
Yeah, that's really cool. Wow.
Yeah, so that's the unique identifier. And in fact, you know, we have the service for the home for a cell phone because you can uniquely identify a cellular device. But we also have photographs, so you can do a personal object like a necklace or earrings or something like that. And then those that we can associate with those through that unique identification through the photograph.
Right. So it doesn't have to be a phone. It could be something else.
Right.
Yeah.
The free trial, which you can start anytime, it takes literally 5 minutes to do it. You could do it on your phone, and it creates a bubble of this high consciousness around your phone, and it also mitigates the EMFs, or brings them from being sort of we can get into that more later, consciousness lowering to raising consciousness.
That's great. That's great.
And same happens with the home subscription. And then once you get through the free trial, if you decide to subscribe, you can then do an object.
Right. Okay. Right. And they can actually sign up for the home or the phone, and then try the other one too to see which way they like it. Right.
Mm-hmm. At this point, yeah.
Yeah. Because I tried the phone first, and then I discovered I really liked the home one. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't know, but I think it might be because of the fact that it does release negative energies from a property. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you buy a place, you really don't know what's happened to it, right? So I had my place cleared multiple times, but you know, things are still occurring, and our neighborhood actually had a few fires. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I always wondered about the impact of the fires, you know, in the neighborhood just on my place, you know, the energy impact. And I did notice that my place felt so much better after I got the home fluffy. Yeah.
Well, conditions can change. Conditions do change, of course.
All the time. Right.
So we had a customer that early on in the service where the property felt really good, better than it had, much better. And then occasionally it wouldn't feel so good. Mm. And we discovered through kinesiology and sort of checking in that there was someone had died on the property. Oh. And their being was walking through periodically.
Oh, wow.
So in a clearing, you might miss that if it's not at the particular time. So then we changed the programming in order to work with that. And then in California, we saw in the past year, so much more water. So the underground streams changed. The aquifers were flowing differently, and it was causing different conditions.
Right.
That was lowering the level of consciousness of large areas. And so we had to write new programs to compensate for those.
Oh, wow.
So that's conditions.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and go ahead.
Once we write a program for one property, it automatically goes on every property.
Right.
So if that condition ever exists, that's one of the benefits of having this model of we call it over-the-air updates. As soon as you fix the condition in one place, if that condition is existent somewhere else, it automatically corrects it. So
yeah, that's really brilliant. It's a tremendous way to do it. So how are you able to test? You mentioned that, you know, my place was, the last time you checked it was at 585. How are you able to test and measure kind of, you know, what the effectiveness is at a particular level?
Kinesiology, as Clayton mentioned, to measure on a scale. And there's 3 of us who test independently, and then we compare our results.
Oh, okay.
So we're testing new properties that come on the service.
Okay.
3 times a week. You know,
wow.
2 to 3 times a week. And then we test all the properties that are on the service once a week.
Wow.
So we can test in a batch, and then, you know, so you basically make a statement, you know, average over the previous 7 days, you know, the level of consciousness properties has been at 560 or higher on the Hawkins map 98% of the time or more, and you get a yes. If you got a no, then you would have to start diving into which property is the one that's low.
Oh, okay, I see.
You know, is it A?
Right.
You know, last name start A through B. A, you know, is it A through C? You know, so that's how we test on a batch scale.
Uh-huh.
And then, you know, for instance, just preparing for the interview, we just checked your property.
Okay.
in the same way by making a statement and using the non-local qualities of kinesiology.
Right. Okay, I see. Okay, so that's how you're able to test and check on these properties. That's very, very clever.
Yeah, Clayton hasn't talked too much about it, but he reverse engineered Dr. Hawkins' method of testing, and it's no small feat to really dig in and find all the protocols to have accurate, repeatable testing results using kinesiology. Because many people have a tough time with that, and it took, years of research for him to do that, and then taught us as well, so that we could be a triad and all test independently.
Well, I'll be looking forward to learning that from you guys. Okay. And now, have you guys done any like blind tests to track results of when Fluffy is on or off? I mean, is there a way to tell? Can you tell?
Yeah, that's a good question. People keep asking us, is there a placebo effect? And of course, at the end of that, people say, well, if it's placebo or not, I don't care. But we do have this list of the principles of discernment. And it goes out with the free trial. It's 25 principles of discernment, things you can look for to validate your experience.
Okay.
So, for example, some people, you're an energy worker, you're pretty sensitive. Mm-hmm. You felt FLFE to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
But you noticed it in your daughter more, perhaps, right?
Yes, I noticed it more in her, just because I was able to observe her.
Yeah.
And I'm used to energy. I'm used to working with high frequency energies. I did a lot of 5th, 6th, and 7th dimensional energy work for almost 20 years now. So it's something I'm more accustomed to. And so I could feel the difference in my home, but in terms of observing, say, change in behavior, for example, I was able to observe it more in her. And I actually, for me, the most fun part of Fluffy for me was that I could manifest so quick. It was incredible. Yeah, it was amazing. It was just so fun, because I would think of something one day and it would just show up the next day, and it was just like, wow. And so that part was amazingly fun. I quite enjoyed that, and I do think it impacted my creativity and focus as well, so that I was better focused and just more. For me, I like to write at night because I don't know what the difference is, but I feel like the psychic energies are different at night, and there's less what I call contamination. And
static.
Yeah, less static. Yeah, and so I often late at night can write, some of the most profound things that I ever think of. But with Fluffy, I could write them in the day. And so I was able to see the difference, that way too, because it's always nice if I can get some work done during the day and write in terms of writing, because I do a lot of writing. So Fluffy was quite amazing in a lot of different ways. But I would like to ask you, why do you think it's easier to manifest with Fluffy?
Well, you're in a high consciousness field. And so if you go to the sacred sites of the world, to the pilgrimage sites, if you're around somebody who has a high level of consciousness, things manifest quicker in those environments. So
really?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's part of the benefit of having a higher level of consciousness, assuming that you manage it well, which typically does happen when you have a higher level of consciousness.
Right.
Because the good news is things manifest quicker.
Yeah.
And the not so good news is
things manifest quicker. And you have to be careful what you're thinking. That's right. And saying. That's correct. Yes.
Yes. So I would answer that too in a different way, that what we notice with the people that are on FLFE is their level of consciousness rises.
Right.
Like in the first 90 days, people that are on at least, 8 hours a day, the average is like 12 points.
Hmm.
So in what we understand about the Hawkins map and what's so profound about the way that he's developed that is each point upwards is 10 times more energy or more power.
Wow.
So in your own environment, that there's more energy available for you to use, for your body to use. So just being in a high consciousness environment means there's more energy available. And the body uses that for health and wellness and all sorts of things. But then your own if your personal level of consciousness goes up by a point, that means you have 10 times more energy or more power to create what you want to create. So if you're talking about going up, 12, it's 10 to the 12th power.
It's a lot.
More energy to create. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing, is it gives us that just more energy to create the life that we want to create.
Right. Well, and the other thing I noticed with FLFE is that I didn't come up with any what I would call resistance comments. I would just think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if XYZ occurred? And I didn't think of, oh, well, that can't happen, or, none of that stuff ever happened. You see, it was just resistance free. It was just like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if?
Yeah.
And then the next day it would show up. And I mean, we had this happen repeatedly. It was amazing. I was like, wow. It was so great. But let me just ask you, because not everybody feels energy, and there are a lot of skeptics, I think, about an energy product because you can't see it, you can't really touch it, you can't take it home in a bag. So how do you explain to people about FLFE, and how do you just get the concept across?
Well, I think I'll start with that and pass it off to you, Clayton. How we talked about prayer,
Mm-hmm.
That effect is how we explain it, because it is very similar to human consciousness and the way it works. But because of what you're asking, we created the free trial.
Right.
With no credit card.
Right.
So just try it. And we incorporated into that a control panel so people can turn it on and off during the free trial. And they can turn off the EMF mitigation independently.
Right.
So you can sit there quietly and you can, turn it on, turn it off, or have somebody else turn it on and off and see if you can tell the difference. So that's a way we wanted to give people tools to be their own experimenter, their own researcher.
Right. Yeah, and that was brilliant.
And it's not that we're brilliant. These things just happen. I like that. Thank you for saying that. But we're not going to claim to be brilliant. So,
well, you see, from my perspective, you are, just that you would even consider creating such a thing. So that to me is brilliant.
One step at a time,
Okay.
The other thing people do is they put it on and they don't tell everybody or anybody else in the household. And they would wait and see what happens, because like people are skeptical. They think, well, am I just imagining it? But if your teenage son starts cleaning his room,
right,
that's a change. He wasn't cleaning his room before, and we see that so often. We see like a high consciousness environment. It just feels good, and you want to take care of it.
Right.
And there's this natural impulse to clean and make the environment better. And so we get people telling us all the time that their teenagers are cleaning their rooms. And so
that would be worth it right there.
That's a great test. That's a great test. And we have one of our friends in Seattle who have a radio show there, and they talk about us. Their dog started laying on the router, on the Wi-Fi router. Never did it before. We put on, FLFE with the EMF mitigation, which is part of the standard package. EMFs now become positive for life, positive for consciousness, and the dog starts sleeping on the router.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So those
Yeah.
things happen. They're not, they're not a result of a placebo.
Right, right. Well, we should probably talk about the EMFs because that is, I think, a really important part of FLFE now that you've added that program to mitigate those EMFs and or electromagnetic frequencies. So tell people what that does for them.
Well, the EMFs was an interesting kind of story. We were noticing when we were testing the properties, like every week, like Jeff said, Madeline, that there would be a property that would be low level. And we would call the customer and we'd say, well, gee, your property was at level all this time and it just dropped below level. What happened? And they'd say, oh, they just put a cell tower across the street.
Mm.
Or, oh, I just got a smart meter put in last week.
Oh, God.
So we started to see a pattern between EMFs lowering consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So we started to do a lot of research on EMFs. Now, there's a distinction. The distinction we use is consciousness lowering EMFs, because not all EMFs are negative. In fact, we emanate electromagnetic frequencies, human beings.
Right.
Right? Your pets do, your children do, the plants do. In fact, the plants are one of the things that oftentimes people may not notice on them or their family, but they notice it on the plants. Like, oh my God, the plants just changed so much. So there's all these things that you can look for.
Mm-hmm.
So with EMFs, we had to really craft the language because we wanted to stay within our area of expertise, which is measuring consciousness. So we use the term consciousness lowering EMFs very particularly. And when we started looking at, well, how are we going to harmonize EMFs? Well, first of all, what are we going to do with EMFs? So what you can do is you can block them, try to block them. You can redirect them. You can neutralize them. You can deflect them or some way, or you can try to harmonize them. And so it took us like several years to do this. We had to develop the language of the highest form of working with EMFs that we could find is to harmonize them, is to make them positive to life, so that if you try to block them or deflect them or alter them in some way, you could interfere with the original equipment manufacturer standards and the engineer specifications, right? So you really just want to harmonize them so that they do what they're designed, the devices do what they're designed to do, but that energy now turns into something positive.
That is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even occur to me that you could make them into something positive. That's very cool.
Well, we found this out from other researchers. It's like they were using the word harmonizing. The people that we really thought they knew what they were doing, they were talking about harmonizing. It's like, wow, we thought that was the highest form of working with EMFs because they're not going away.
Right.
And
so I thought I'd tell them about the story of the first discovery.
Oh yes, yeah, right. The cell phone.
Yeah. So the first discovery we had of harmonizing was really before we created the rest of the EMF mitigation program, which is part of FLFE. Was Clayton was experimenting with the cell phone and raising the level of consciousness of the phone, and we discovered that when it got to a certain level of 580, that so the whole phone is now vibrating at this higher level. It's in this high consciousness field. We discover we could, just like when you pray for someone and you think of them, we're basically praying or asking for that phone to be at this level of consciousness, and it does.
Wow.
You can measure it independently, and it's there at 580. That when it hit that 580 level, everything's vibrating. So the antennas are vibrating as well, and they're emitting this EMF energy, and it's now vibrating at a different level, and it becomes positive for life. So plants would grow, with that, and the way that we can tell is the level of consciousness goes up. Or if you use kinesiology or muscle testing, you can have a phone. You can hold a phone in front of you, and you can either rock towards it or away from it.
All right.
Or you can test yourself whether you're strong or weak. And a standard cell phone you'll move away from it naturally, or you'll be weak. And then once it's on the service, then it's positive and you move towards it. Or if you're sensitive in that way.
So will the EMF mitigations impact 5G? I hear lots of terrible, horrible stories about 5G, so I'm sure that's a question in a lot of people's minds.
Yes. Yes. Another factor after raising the level of consciousness of the emitter, the next thing that we discovered is shungite as a natural harmonizer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Many people have discovered that. You can buy shungite stick, buttons to put on your phone, and people put pieces of shungite on their routers or smart meter banks.
Wow.
So we discovered, yeah. Well, if you got FLFE, you don't need it.
FLFE, I don't need it. Yeah.
Because we discovered we could pick up the energetic essence of shungite and through this quantum resonance have it in the field and have it harmonize the EMFs in the field. So there's shungite actually interacting with the EMFs in a home or around a cell phone. Or around an object as well.
Or a computer.
Yeah. So basically in a home, it's anything within the property limits.
Okay.
So it's right to the boundaries. So it's anything within, but it's also anything coming in from outside. So you've got EMF coming from outside, from cell towers all over the city, from 5G antennas close by. And so that is all harmonized on its way into the bubble around the property. And so all of that coming in gets harmonized and becomes positive for life, or positive in terms of raising consciousness, which we believe is positive for life.
Right.
That's an indicator of the environment's health. As Clayton said, you could deflect, and in some cases, if you had like a big radar beam that passed over your house, you might raise the level too much. So in that case, we're deflecting. Through the shungite. Shungite is really good for that. So So we believe smart meters, 5G, all of these are positive in an FLFE environment. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, because there's so much terrible information about smart meters.
Yeah, it's getting worse too. I mean, there's more fear about it, and we all like the convenience of all these appliances, and there is there's a price that we pay as biological organisms living in an energized environment like that. In fact, I remember reading an article about Tesla, and he was inventing when him and I forget the person he was working with. It wasn't Franklin. It was
Edison. Yeah.
Edison. Yeah. They were determining which current to use, alternating or direct current, and what the frequency would be. And not long after Edison started producing machines that operated at a certain frequency, within weeks, Tesla found that if you had the machine 60 hertz, the machine would put off a positive energy as well as cool your food in your refrigerator.
Wow.
And, but that never got put out because Edison wanted to put out his version of the technology. And when I read that, I always thought that's not right. Like, you should have a machine. If you have the option, we should have technology around us that sends out positive energy as well as does all the things that that they do. It's like, why not? Why would you accept anything less? And so that was one of the you get these little bees in your bonnet, as they call them, these little frustrations. Like, that was one of the ones that I was happy when we had found a way to correct that.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous that you found a way to correct that. That's really great.
Yeah, and it works on your cell phone too, Madeline. Like, there's a bubble around your phone, so as you're traveling through life, all the EMFs that come into the environment to the phone are harmonized, or in some cases, as Jeff said, we had to deflect some of them, but we found a way to do that where it doesn't interfere with the OEM's standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Original. Yeah.
Yeah, because it still needs to function.
Yeah, you can kind of bend things so they go around a little bit, or, so just so you have a 4-foot bubble, everything that comes in that needs to work works, and there's ways to manage it so you're
Yeah,
still being free of that.
that's really great. And another thing I want to mention is that recently I had sent out an email update to my newsletter people about how we were uh, experiencing a lot of energies associated with chaos, strife, discontent, I would say. And these were basically related to very specific cycles that we're having now. And we're having a lot of them at an unusual amount of them. And so one of my fluffy people came back and said, well, will Fluffy protect me from this? And I thought that it would. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about that.
Well, I'd say we don't claim protection.
Right. But I
You
mean,
know,
in terms of if your environment is at a higher frequency, it seems like you wouldn't attract.
well, I think it's like being, the way I experience FLFE, it's like being on a trampoline, and you can bounce and you can go low, but it's that support to come back up quickly.
Right.
And
Right.
in that, in the field, so Hawkins' work is just brilliant about fields of consciousness and how they're all around us and they're associated with everything, and they're sort of lenses in which you see the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're in the field of love, you see the world differently than if
Yes.
you're in the lens of fear, of course.
Right.
So when you're fearful, it's like everything's fearful, you know.
Well, and
So
you attract whatever you're fearful of too, because that's where your energy is going, right? It's focused on whatever you fear. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think we're just supported in these energies um, to be, and they're not frequencies in FLFE. They're actually fields of consciousness
Mm.
at
Ah,
these
right.
levels of consciousness, and so they just help you to see the world in that positive way and support you by, you could say, helping to bring us back to the environment that we would naturally be in, free of interference,
Mm-hmm.
free of the EMFs, and that natural environment where we can evolve. That's really our mission, is to support the evolution of consciousness, for each one of us, but and for all.
Right.
That environment being free of those interferences as much as possible, to be a positive cocoon of that energy could help in those turbulent times when, you can just let things go
Right.
and
Right.
they come up, you feel it, great, and you just let it go, and then
Right.
you can process through things. Um,
Yeah, it doesn't stick around and fester.
Yeah.
and the clearing of negative history is happening ongoingly. So it's not just when
Right.
you first start with the home. So if something's popped up, or a big fight, or there's something you really got sad about and then released it, now that's cleared.
Right. Yeah, and that's on the home program, right?
Yes.
And also you have one for the business, right? For businesses?
Yep.
And that works for that one too, doesn't it? The release of negative energies, or
Yeah, it's all the same programs with the business, and then there's support for coordination between teams. There's support for people to communicate. There's support for creativity and
ah.
focus and concentration, as well as with the business subscription. The corporation itself is on the service to be cleared of its anything negative in its history.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's very cool.
yeah. We
Yeah.
had a friend that bought a business, and I think it had gone bankrupt. Thinking of Eli,
Oh, yeah.
and he said that it had, once that cleared out, it felt like a different business.
I'll bet. Yeah. Yeah, it makes a big difference. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So
Yeah,
do you have any, go ahead.
when you create something like a business, it's a legally recorded entity that's consistent and verifiable in an integrous way, just like an address, right? There's only one
Right,
address, like
right.
yours. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore it exists in consciousness. So that's how it works.
Ah,
And if it exists in consciousness and you can identify it, then the technology can support it to go, to support it.
it's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with what you guys have done. You have no idea. So now, do you guys have a favorite fluffy story you like to tell?
Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I had one. Yeah, one of my favorites is it's a little bit similar to your daughter. It's a woman came on the service. She was on the free trial, and her brother had been in a car accident, terrible car accident, and he was paralyzed,
Wow.
very depressed, wasn't getting out of bed for seemed like almost a year. I'm trying to remember the exact details. For a very long time, he had been in bed. She turned it on. A couple of days later, she was gone. She came back. He was out of bed, in his wheelchair, outside.
Wow. That's incredible.
That's why we do this.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. So that really can make a giant difference for someone who is depressed or has had a traumatic experience of some, or grief from losing a loved one or something like that.
The support's there. Free will, of course, reigns.
Right.
Free will
Right.
wins, but the support's there to have more energy.
Mm-hmm.
And with that more energy, you can, it can support you to go to another level.
Right. Well, I was very impressed with the fact that both my daughter and I slept so much better. Now I'm curious why you think that happens, but but I was it was a tremendous benefit. And it occurs to me, Cryon has talked a lot about how the Earth and the entire solar system is going through a part of the galaxy where humans have not been before, and the frequencies are so much higher here and that we have never been exposed to. Mm-hmm. And so he claims, or she or it or whatever Cryon is, they, I think that's right, that when you go to sleep, that it's kind of like your body feels like you're in a rock and roll concert or maybe heavy metal or something like that. And so somehow, I don't know what the reason is that I slept better, but I did notice it. We noticed it pretty much immediately that we started sleeping better.
Well, I noticed with the EMF mitigation, when I turn it off, I feel a tension. Like I feel a tension in my chest. I feel a tension in my body. Right. And then when I turn it back on, I relax.
Yes.
So I've felt that the EMF mitigation has helped me sleep.
Okay.
Because there's these, it's like incoming chaotic energy. We did a study that's on the website about that in the environment with FLFE, that the energy is just smoother.
Right.
It's not as spiky with these kind of incoming spikes. So I think that's part of it, is just less input and the body can relax into safety. Or
so that's I would say that's right. It feels like you can relax easier. Yeah.
Now some people experience like a little ramp up, like they have more energy and they get like maybe for a few days they'll get kind of ramped up where they may have trouble sleeping.
Oh, okay.
And so that happens too. It seems like a relatively small percentage. We don't have numbers, on that. And what happens there is they get used to it and then it goes the other way. Or you can pause, because on the free trial and the subscription, you could pause the service. In fact, you could pause the FLFE part and you could keep the EMFs on. So we'd like to keep it flexible so people can play with it.
Yeah, and you have a control center where they can do that on their computers or their phones, right? They could just go in there and turn it on or off and see what the difference is.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, so is there anything? Oh, go ahead.
Well, talk about sleep for a minute because we haven't really
Okay.
got into the programming much yet.
Oh, okay.
So when we talk about clearing the negative history of the land, the way that we do that, Madeline, is we made a list of all the negative conditions that could ever occur on a piece of land.
Okay.
It literally took us weeks of writing. It was a pretty dark time.
Wow.
Every type of abuse, every type of derogatory behavior, remarks, all the conditions that are possible. We made a list of all those, and then the way that the program started out, it's like, divinity, please, correct anything restraining these from conditions from being removed. And at the end, we have a safety valve, and it's that everything must be done in the highest and best interest of all creation. Right? So that way we don't believe we can do any harm.
Right.
Because there's karma and free will, as Jeff said earlier, and lots of other things that we would never be able to understand about your situation and your daughter's. So it is a conversation with God, like we're always having.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sleep program, for example, what we do is we start doing a lot of research on sleep. What are the optimal conditions for sleep? So one of the things we found was that a lot of people, their melatonin production has been diminished significantly for extended periods of time because of blue light toxicity.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that is, and you've, my favorite website on the subject is lowbluelights.com. And we're not associated with them in any way, but they do some great research. Lots of people now are talking about the effect that watching your computer screen or your phone screen late at night, because that blue light, that white blue light, we don't oftentimes see the blue so much, but it goes into the retina and it tells the body that it's daytime.
Oh, okay.
So typically the body would like to have about 3 hours of twilight before it went to sleep, which is oftentimes what would happen, right?
Right.
If we had just candles, even candles are fine.
Right.
So it's a different type of light. So one of the things that we discovered in that research was that we should ask the body to optimize its melatonin production again, because when something is diminished for a long time, it gets almost like, if glands get calcified or they get diminished or they get atrophied.
Right.
If they're not able to work enough, they can be diminished. And thoughts are things. And so we put the thought in there of, please restore the optimal, the body's optimal condition, I can't remember exactly how it said, to produce melatonin.
Oh, brilliant.
Right. So we don't know how much that works. We haven't done like blood work before and after. But we do a lot of these things because they're the right thing to do. And so what we do is we write out the context of what we're trying to do. So let's say we're trying to create the ultimate sleep program. So we'd write down all the things that would be the best sleep, the ability to fall asleep quick, stay in the right, delta state or REM state, whatever was best for you. And we'd write down all these conditions about the optimal state. And then we'd write out all the requests to divinity. And then we'd measure the level of truth of the request to divinity against the context of the request.
Interesting.
And then those programs, we call them, they calibrate at 999 out of 1,000 or higher before we put them on.
Wow.
Yes, and then we always experiment. We experiment on ourselves first, and then we have like beta test groups. So we're very conservative in that way. But it's very highly controlled, and it's a lot of work to write a program. I'll tell you, it's like a lot of hours.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I do believe you. I couldn't even attempt it.
You could do it. It just would, it just takes time, and it takes a certain type of skill, and it's just sort of evolved over time as things do.
Right. So is there something new coming, or are there any innovations that you're working on, or you're just kind of checking to see how things are working at the moment? Or it's not been that long ago that you did the EMFs.
The
program.
EMFs came out in December of 2018.
Yeah.
We're always planning ahead. We're always looking ahead at what might be next. and supporting brain health is one of those things.
Mm.
It seems that being in these EMF environments, kind of foggy brain and short-term memory and those type of things seem to be what can happen, and so supporting that brain health is one of those. While we do have that in the current FLFE, this is a whole new level of support. So
fabulous.
Something that we're working on for perhaps later in the year. As Clayton said, we're conservative and we take our time to do it right. So
great. I'll send you a good timing guide so you can choose a good day to introduce it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, is there anything else we should cover before we close?
Oh. Well, maybe I'll start. Let Jeff finish it up. Our focus the last couple of years of our life has become business as a spiritual path.
Mm.
And a lot of my work in my other business is talking about business as spiritual service, business as a spiritual path, and business as a spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so business as a spiritual path for us is looking at the business as an opportunity to grow ourselves spiritually, because all the lessons of life show up everywhere.
Right.
It's not separate. There's not spirituality in some way, right?
No.
And everything else is not spiritual. I mean,
no, it's all together in the same pot. Yeah.
It's all in the same pot. So that's been our focus, and we're glad to share this path with other people like you and your friends and customers and associates. And so, just to let people know, we are on a spiritual path. We do have a lot of responsibility of stewardship with the technology. We're very careful with it, and we have lots of controls, and we do lots of testing,
mm-hmm.
and lots of safety valves. Probably a little bit too much, perhaps. We do a tremendous amount of service work. And typically, I say since the business was incorporated, the average amount of energy that we give away is 96% of what we use.
Wow.
It used to be 98, but we're growing. And these new programs take so much energy, like the EMF program. So we are doing a lot of work behind the scenes to try to help all of us. We're all in it together.
It's fantastic.
So we just thank you for your support, Madeline.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm delighted to be able to support your program. And one of the reasons I was so delighted to find out about your program is because we teach prosperity training, and it's very hard for people to increase their prosperity if they can't feel good. And so FLFE is fantastic for helping people to feel good so they can focus on attracting things that they want. And like I said, when I was telling you about manifesting things, there was no resistance to how could I get it or anything. It was just, well, wouldn't it be nice if, and then it would just show up. And so it was, it made manifesting so much more fun and almost like magic. It was so fun. And I really appreciate your work so much. Yeah. Do you have any last comments, Jeff? Or
I would just invite anyone watching to join us. To join us as researchers and try the free trial and see what you think and turn it on and off and play with it and observe others and to join us on this journey. It's really been quite a journey, and there's quite a community growing of subscribers and sharing stories and really helping each other. Right now we have a private Facebook group, and we're going to migrate to our own platform.
Nice.
But what's developing is a community of support and just incredible stories. So we just invite you to join us.
That's great. And I hope people will join you, because it is one of the best products I've ever imagined, and actually I never could have imagined it. So it was truly great. And thank you, Jeff and Clayton, for joining me today and helping us understand focused life force energy in a much better way, deeper way, so that we can understand these concepts, which are beyond some of us, but which you guys have figured out. And I want to say a special thanks to everyone who joined us as well. And please check out FLFE for free. You don't even have to put in a credit card, nothing. And when it's over, it's over. And if you want to sign up for it for $30 a month, it's a great investment. It's truly life-changing and helpful. So if you look around this video, you'll see there's a link, and just click on it and it'll take you to the place where you can sign up for free. So thank you, Jeff and Clayton. Many blessings, and blessings to all who were watching this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.